Welcome back to Energetically You, where we talk all things optimal wellness, abundant mindset, and empowered decision-making. I'm your host, Megan Swan, a wellness coach and consultant, and the founder of Megan Swan Wellness and the Sustainable Integrated Wellness Approach. I help high-performance women thread more wellness into their existing lifestyle so that it becomes a way of life and not a check mark on their to-do list. I design custom, approachable wellness lifestyles because I know there's no one-size-fits-all wellness. After working with me, women have more magnetic energy and confidence from within and ultimately make more aligned and empowered decisions for themselves. I am on a mission to empower more women through optimal wellness. Today, I'm excited to have a conversation with my friend Lauren Najar. She is a business consultant specializing in marketing and lead generation strategies. Lauren works alongside business owners in growing and scaling their businesses, along with offering done-for-you services. I'm excited to talk to her about all things working smarter, not harder, when it comes to growing our business. So let's dive in. Welcome, Lauren. I'm so happy that you're here today and looking forward, quite honestly, to getting to know you better because I really respect all your work. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I thought to take this podcast outside today. It's absolutely gorgeous. I don't get outside often during the day, so trying to get outside more. So I'm happy. It's sunny. It's perfect outside. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm well. And you're in a part of the world where the window is closing in terms of taking meetings outside.
Yes. So enjoy it while it lasts because we're past Labor Day. And like 2 days ago, it was like 60 degrees. So it was pretty cold and rainy. And now it's going to be near 90 again. So gotta enjoy it while it lasts.
It looks like a beautiful day. Well, I wanted to ask first for you to tell a little bit of your story. How did you get to where you are in terms of your business, and what was sort of your inspiration to switch it up?
So this almost can be a long story, so I'm going to give you the short version of it. One of the things that I realized maybe when I got to college was I just really wanted to work for myself. And I had a teacher believe in me. I went for teaching originally for college. And then I had a teacher tell me to not go for teaching.
Interesting.
And he's like, what's the next thing you're interested in? And I said, finance. And he goes, go for that. And so I instantly changed. And I think it might've been a belief thing. But as soon as I started to go down that path, I started to think about like all of these different businesses I could create for myself. Kind of fast forward there, my mom passed away when I was 21 and I was still in college. And then my dad passed away when I was 23 and that was right before I graduated college. And so I kind of like, I had people in my life that really helped me and supported me. So I think what those lessons taught me is just, yeah, you can say like life is short, but it truly made me realize that why am I wasting my time doing something or chasing someone else's dream or helping someone else's business? Why can't I just truly go for what I want? And about 11 months after my dad passed away, I was diagnosed with cancer. So I went through all of these things in like a 5-year span. And so like, I was just really just hit in the face over and over again to where I, no matter what, needed to go and just like absolutely chase what I wanted to do. And it took about 4 or 5 years for me to get to that point, to finding this business, after I was in remission and all of those things. But I think that it just, the journey led me here. The journey led me to, I know I wanted to help people. I know I wanted to help people maximize their full potential, but I also love business. I love finance. I love sales. So it kind of marries those two loves I have. And this business was born.
Wow. Okay. Well, you started out with this funny story that I do want to ask some follow-up questions to, but
sure.
I don't want to skip over those massive life events that you had to endure quite young. How did it kind of make up who you are now, other than what you just said in terms of kind of, not wasting time? I guess, how do you thread them into your story on why you believe you were dealt those cards?
Yeah, that took so long to come to terms with. I think, it's just one tragedy is enough to kind of like digest, like in your nervous system and all of these things. But then I had, I relapsed with cancer as well. So I actually had it twice. And so I look at who I was before all of this happened versus who I am kind of after all of this happened. And I am a completely different person. And I think the biggest difference that I could just think off the top of my head is I really just wanted to work in finance and have my own business to make a lot of money. And money was my driving factor. And, not that I didn't grow up with I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I definitely had, everything that I asked for. My dad was our sole provider. My mom was a substitute teacher. So I'm not saying that we were, like struggling or anything, but I definitely wasn't like, I don't have family money. So I think like when I was growing up, I'm like, I want to have more money than my parents. Like I want to be able to, I was paying for my own school. So that was kind of something I was frustrated about. I had a lot of friends where their parents were paying them for, they're buying their cars and buying their college. I'm like, I'm going to make a lot of money and I'm going to be in a better financial position. And just like really like money was my driving factor. Now it's not that at all. Like, yes, money's a good thing, but money kind of inspires me to help people. Like that is what drives me now is the more money I have, the more people I could help. But the fire in me or the driving force why I show up every day is truly like, you don't have to necessarily go through these horrible things to like have this story and to like live out your dream. Like you can live out your dream when you have a normal life as well. So that's kind of like my message. It's like, kind of like, why not you? Like, you don't have to go through these horrible experiences to truly like build your business and do all of these things.
Yeah. Okay. So back to the funny light story off the top. What do you think that teacher saw in you that you didn't maybe want to admit?
I don't know. He was my sophomore psychology teacher, and I really didn't make any like relationships with teachers other than like I did really well in his class and it was really fun. I don't know. I was sitting in the guidance counselor office my senior year and he happened to be in there and he was just like, oh, like what college are you going to? Like, what's your major? And I don't know. To this day, I don't know. Pretty sure he's like a principal now or something like that. So I'm sure maybe his psychology training saw something in me. I'm not sure. I really don't know. I really didn't have a close relationship with him. So to this day, I still don't know that answer. But I know that it definitely defined the path for me, for sure. Like it needed to happen. I think I was going through like a tough time also at home. I really wanted to go away to school and my parents weren't letting me to go away to school. So I stayed local and went to a local college. And so I was just really frustrated that I wanted to just keep branching out, but like I felt very restricted by my parents. So maybe he was that person for me at that time to be like, go for what you really want.
Yeah. It's so interesting sometimes how you have these, relatively fleeting interactions or even just one conversation with another human being that completely shifts something. And in my experience, it like shifts how you're looking and thinking about it, but it's almost like a physical, like something shifts in you and you're like, huh.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's because you already knew that, right? It's just somebody bringing something closer to the surface for you.
I think that's truly my life story. Like, I think that's like an ongoing theme even now. Like, even when there's something like a big idea I have now, like it's almost sometimes someone just needs to give me that nudge or almost give you permission to go for what you want. And sometimes you need that. Like if it's something that's big and scary, and I know I can do things on my own. I've done things on my own for a very long time. But sometimes when it's new and you haven't seen it done before, sometimes you just need that support.
Yeah. So you went straight into starting your own business, or was there a chapter there that you worked in finance for somebody else?
Yeah, for 10 years I worked in banking. I would like in college started as a part-time teller. She was just a bank teller. While I was in college, it was supposed to only be a resume builder for when then I did leave college, and then to get a job somewhere else. Then I had started at that job a month before my dad passed away. And then a year later was diagnosed with cancer. So this job ended up I was there for 10 years because of all of these things. But about, I would say 2 years before I left is when I started building this business. So, unfortunately, I didn't get to leave that job to build this business. I really wanted to give that place my 2 weeks notice and never look back. I ended up getting another job briefly in the middle there, just to kind of bridge, do less hours and make more income and kind of leave my job faster because I wasn't getting that at my banking job. But yeah, I was there for 10 years.
So what would you say to someone who, maybe for a short period of time or maybe for a really long period of time has had it on their radar that, they might not be in the correct career or the correct job within the industry that they chose, and kind of making that leap to being your own boss. And also, I feel like there's kind of been so much explosion of talk of entrepreneurship that now people are maybe feeling a little bit of shame that they don't want to be an entrepreneur, like that doesn't necessarily have to be the pivot.
Yeah. I struggled with that a lot as well. I think the shame back maybe before the pandemic, and maybe still it is a little bit more, I don't think it's as much now, but it was the shame of having a 9-to-5 while building your business. And when I started my business, right out of the gate, I think like I had a couple $5,000 months, like right off the bat. And I just feel like for me at that point, I was just kind of like, oh, I'm going to leave this business or I'm going to leave my job in like 2 months. Like, oh my God, like look at all the success. And I think that's because there's so much talk about money and how much money I'm making or how much money you're making and how much money, people bring in a month, but there isn't a lot of talk about what goes into that. Mm-hmm. I think what was really like the frustration kind of grew from when people were saying, oh, I worked 10 hours this week and I made $100,000 with no mention of, I have a team of 8 people. I, have these systems set up, which I spent 50 hours setting up these systems over the course of the last 2 years. People aren't real with that. And so that's a big part of like something that I do in my business. I will celebrate my milestones. I just posted a week ago, I reached 6 figures. I will post those milestones, but I'm not going to do it as come work with me because I made 6 figures. I want people to work with me because they respect and how like I can help you build your business. So I think that's the biggest mindset shift there is you can be happy for people. You're going to see a lot of those celebrations, but that has nothing to do with your progress. That has nothing to do with how you leave. I took about 3.5 years to leave. And from what a lot of people promote, that's long compared to some people, but then you don't have the other people talking about how long it took them to leave because they feel the shame. And I feel that needs to be said more and talked about more because everyone will leave on their own time. I know that if I was making money, I could have lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with my husband and our dog, or a studio apartment, moved out of the city, moved to the suburbs, pay, cheap rent, maybe live out of my car, live out of a van. Some people do that, right? Like if they're chasing their dream, but that's not what I wanted. I don't live in Chicago anymore, but I lived in Chicago while building my business. I lived in a high rise. I didn't want to let go of that lifestyle. I wanted to meet like that income that I needed. I didn't want to make that sacrifice, and that's just who I was. So it's all your own journey. It's all what you want to do. Like that's the biggest thing. Like you have to put those blenders on. You can't overconsume. You have to just plan your journey out exactly how you need it to be.
Yeah. Well, I think it comes down to expanding and sort of sitting a little bit longer in like, what does success actually mean to me? Like in your example,
Yes.
part of success is that I'm not giving up my entire lifestyle to do this. And I do think that there's this false narrative and a lot of pressure about a certain timeline, and you needing to have the exact same timeline as XYZ coach that you're following, when in fact, I equate it. I see a lot of similarities between people's wellness journey and their journey to entrepreneurship, meaning like there's no one size fits all. It's a lot of trial and error. What works for you doesn't necessarily work for somebody else. And just because there's so many moving parts, and at the end of the day, it has to be personalized, which is the benefit of being your own boss, is that you completely define what that means for you. So yeah, love that. So at what point did you really see your niche? Like what was the magic sauce, if you will, of where the gap in the industry that you love to fill?
I think that comes from, like my finance and sales background. That was something that I did for 10 years at the bank. I started as a teller, and then I quickly moved up to like a sales associate. Then I was a manager. So one of my tasks, I should say, at my job was I had to coach people in sales. And I did that for 5 years. I was kind of like the pilot of this new program. I had to certify people. I had to train people. And I really, out of all the things I didn't like about that job, it definitely gave me the guiding light on how sales, like if I rewound and went back 5 years, I hated the sales process. I absolutely hated it. But now that I'm building my own business, I see what they were trying to do. And I know that I could have done it better, like training people or like telling people that this isn't how it's done. I get what they're trying to do. They had this thing where it was a sales conversation. And so that's really how I like to sell now and forever. And how I started my business. And then it kind of clicked one day. I'm like, oh yeah, this is what they were trying to do, but they were still trying to make it like a script, but still saying to have a conversation. So whatever. But I know now, like that's the beauty of building a business and selling, is that it doesn't need to be slimy or sleazy or anything. Like I'm just really interested in getting to know people and truly helping them. Like you don't have to do it this hard way, or you don't have to do it like this. Like here's an easier way for you to do it. Here is a better way for you to do it. And that's what really helps me. Oh, there's an alarm. That's what really helps me is like, I guess that's, again, like that goes back to what drives me is like, you can do it in an easier way. You can build your business in an easier way. It doesn't have to be this hard way. But that's how I was in my approach in my job was, someone would come to me that, their checking account isn't fitting their needs. It's like, well, just do this then. And so like, that's how I sold all the time, but that wasn't the bank way, right? Like that wasn't like, well, you can't just tell them to do it. You have to have this whole conversation, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I know what's going to help them. Why can't I just give them the service that's going to help them? Like they're profit first, they want to get more sales and do all these things. It's like, that's all business needs to be about, is just having a conversation and building a relationship and getting to know people, and then just helping, like giving them the solution. Like, okay, like I know you're struggling with this, so why not do this? Like, I know it's going to help you. And so that's like the best part. Yeah.
The building of these organic relationships, ultimately, when I know that you're the expert in said thing, I'm really going to respect your opinion on what you think I should do, even if I'm not necessarily asking for that direct advice. So can you give an example of working smarter, not harder, that you're sort of talking about more recently, or that you're finding a lot of entrepreneurs are struggling with, maybe letting go of something they've been taught that's not working?
Yeah, Reels comes to mind. That's like the first thing that comes to mind, or TikTok. I think it's just this propensity to do whatever the trend is. And that's great if you want to hop on that bandwagon, but it might not be for your business. And so what I mean by that is not every brand or not every business is going to fit TikTok or is going to fit a reel. And sure, you can create reels and you can be on TikTok. I've seen like construction workers on TikTok. Everyone's on TikTok. So I'm sure you could figure it out. But I think it's this propensity that, oh my God, I need to be entertaining to get more followers, to get visible, to do all of these things. And then in addition, I have to sell. I have to be on Facebook. I have to be on Instagram. I have to have an email list. I want to do a blog. You just have all of these things, but you haven't perfected one thing. And so when I have clients work with me, it tends to be where people are just doing all the stuff. They're on every platform. They have all these grandiose plans. And you have to focus on one thing first. You have to find that one thing that works for you. And then guess what? You can probably just make money from that one thing. But that's really great. Maybe, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months down the road, go on TikTok. As soon as you have like your Facebook or your Instagram really set up for a system and getting clients and all those things, okay, then we can introduce TikTok. Then we can introduce a blog. Then we can introduce YouTube. So I think that's the biggest thing, is like we're just in this rush to do more and more and more because we're not making as much money as we want. And that's just simply not the answer.
Yeah. Again, I see a parallel with women and their wellness perspectives. It's like, it's not necessary or helpful even to do all the wellness trends at the same time, just because somebody told you should, or that you saw it on Oprah or whatever. And yes, essentially an energy drain.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it, right? Like there's so many parallels to wellness and business. I use those examples all of the time because I feel like it's, people have been through diets before. People have wanted to lose weight before. People have wanted to do all these things before. And people will give a diet 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks and they won't stick to it. Or maybe not even a diet, but just like kind of changing your lifestyle, working out, and you're expecting to see results in 2, 3, 4 weeks. That's the same thing with business is, oh, well, I've been posting consistently for 3 weeks. Like, where are all my clients? It's like, no, like you have to show up consistently over 60 days, over 90 days. And it's like the big snowball effect. And I always use that terminology. It's, when it comes to building relationships, it's okay. Maybe you built relationships or sent messages to 5 people today, but then tomorrow you'll do 5 more. And then the next day you'll do 5 more. And guess what? Who cares if those people, not everyone's going to respond back to you. You're going to keep making these connections and it's a compound effect and you're going to continue to get engagement and continue to be consistent. And people are going to start getting to know you and building relationships. It's the same thing like with fitness, fitness and business have so many parallels.
Totally. So sticking with this parallel, I'm all about like micro shifts that people can make, because when they're so small, it doesn't really seem like something that you can make the argument, oh, I don't have time to do something 2 minutes a day, or I don't have, you do have the time. It's just to deciding to do it. And then when you start to do it, and even though you're hardly doing it, you still feel better. What are maybe some micro shifts that you purport?
I think the earliest one was the difference comes from when you don't feel like showing up. And what I mean by that is, again, same thing with fitness is, there's going to be days where maybe, you don't want to go to the gym or do yoga or do journaling or mindset exercises. And then you don't want to post on Facebook. Maybe you don't want to show your face. But, and I understand there is a difference between being severely burnt out, not feeling well, totally fine, take a sick day. But there is that little in between time where we get frustrated and hopeless of, well, it's not working and I don't want to show up. And what's the point? That's the goal. Or that's the little piece right there where you have to show up more than ever. And that's the make it or break it in anything that you're pursuing is when you start to feel like that, you really have to recognize, okay, well, how can I show up in a different way then? Or how can I show up in a way where I'm not showing my face today or something? Like do the bare minimum, but you're still showing up, you're still doing something. And I think that's the biggest thing is people give up so easily. And, again, instant gratification, if it's not working 2, 3, 4 weeks, then, oh, well, I'm not enough. I don't feel like it's working. I'm not doing enough. I need to do more. I think that's the biggest, that's the thing right there. That's like that little piece right there. It's like, if you don't give up and you keep going in those moments, there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to achieve what you're going to achieve. If you recognize those moments and you keep just going. Of course, everyone needs a mental health day. People, you need to rest, of course. But, when you just feel like not showing up because things aren't working, that's when you have to show up more.
Yeah. And I feel like it's in that decision process. And maybe it's not, the growth. What happens there is growth and expansion, right. Your ability to hold more good and bad emotions. And ultimately, you can just hold on to, you're going to feel better after you've done it. That's the little piece of that gets you through. And you do that part's not a lie. But yeah, I think it's sort of that, for me, that's the mindset piece of, consistently walking yourself through that thought process of, do I just go watch Netflix because I feel like it's not working or it's not happening or, I'm not getting the results that I was told or even just put in place for myself. Let's talk about that for a second, because I feel like this sort of nuanced. I feel like it's the same with goal setting. So essential that we set goals, the more nitty gritty we can get, the more sort of breaking it down into actionable steps, but similar to what we're just talking about in terms of the discipline of showing up. I feel like it's also the same with goals where it's like, you need to do all these things and it's definitely moving the needle forward. But for someone who feels like it's not working, they might also feel like goal setting isn't worthwhile.
Right. I totally can see that. And I agree. And I was one of those people for a very long time, just at the beginning of every year, I'm going to leave I'm going to leave my job today, pursue my business. And I think that came from what I was seeing online from all the people, and maybe having that shame of, I'm not a true business owner if I'm still working this job. And for me, I would always say that goal, right? I would always say, I'm going to leave this year. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But then I would never leave, and I would forever be upset with myself. And I would be down on myself and thinking things aren't working, or I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough. But I was putting an unrealistic expectation on myself. Did I plan anything to truly leave? No, all I was focusing on I'm going to make, 10K months consistently, because I'm going to hire this coach and this is what's going to happen. I wasn't actually putting things on my list of here's how you get to this income level. This is the strategy. Follow this, do this. I was just in my mind, I have to leave. I got to do more. And you put this unrealistic expectation and pressure on yourself when you do things like that. If you really want to leave, I left because I finally, a year and a half, like before I left, about a year and a half, I put a plan in place and I followed that plan for a year and a half. And guess what? I left. So I think like you set goals, but I think the reason why we get down on goals is because we set unrealistic goals because we're so desperate to leave or to do something or to lose weight that we're then expecting ourselves to do something that we've never done before, when really goal setting is just like, yeah, maybe you're doing something you've never done before, but it's not to an extreme. Like, you mean to tell me overnight you're going to drink 64 ounces of water, eat plant-based when you've been eating normal all this time, and then you're going to lose weight? Like, it's just like from one extreme to another, you cannot do that overnight. Like, it has to be a gradual process. And so that's like how I left my business, was like, it's a gradual process. And for me, I am the queen of, if I want something now, I want it yesterday. And so like this whole process made me really learn that, hey, got to follow the plan and I'm going to get there. It's going to be a matter of time, but I have to follow the plan. I have to have these, and even just like celebrating your small wins along the way. Like, they might not even be like milestones for you, but hey, guess what? If you sign a new client and it's only $50, guess what? $50 closer to you leaving your job. And if you're not happy with that, you're not going to be happy when you leave your job. You're not going to be happy when you sign $5,000, $10,000. You have to be happy in the moment and enjoy the journey and celebrate those milestones along the way.
Again, it sounds like everything I say to clients about wellness.
Right. There's so many parallels, truly.
The thing is, like, you can do those 180 shifts, but they're not sustainable. Like, you can show up and do some crazy stuff for a week, like even 3 weeks, even 3 months. But as soon as you start asking people, okay, but, in order to get that level of, quick fix success, then enters the fear. Like, what's going to happen when they stop doing that? And they already know, like, when you sign up for these challenges, if you will, that there's light at the end of the tunnel, that you're in some version of you is going to go back to, quote unquote, whatever normal baseline is.
Yeah.
Maybe you hope that like some of the craziness of the changes that you just endured kind of rubs off onto brings your baseline slightly higher. But I feel like there's just so much more gradual, real, like, connection of neurons learning that goes on when it's at a realistic pace. And I think we as humans are very bad at making plans. And I would say, like, in my 20s, I would have never, like, I don't know, maybe someone asked me, but I did not have a 5-year plan, let alone a 10. Like, maybe you don't need it in your 20s. I don't know. But I didn't extrapolate out, this idea that what I'm doing on a minute level day to day right now will impact where I am in 5 years. And like, so where am I aiming? Because if you're not even aiming there, you're definitely not getting there. But also, like, if you are shooting out for this place that you can't even see, there's a lot of ways that you could be diverted from here to there, trying to get to somewhere that you can't even see on the horizon. Yeah.
I think it took me, I think I had to turn like 31 or 32 for that to click in for me. Like, I mean, I think, you know what, that's a big difference too, is like before my parents passed away, I did have a 5-year plan. I was like, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to marry the guy I'm dating. And, we're going to get married right out of college and get a house and then have kids. And I'm going to, of course, be done by 30. Like, and of course, none of that happens. And I think like that's who I was before, even just having cancer. Like, I was the person that like had everything planned, very organized. And so, coming out the other end, it's a very other extreme to how I feel. And I feel like I definitely go with the flow. But now I think that having this business full time has really kind of like allowed that former person to come back in. Cause I think there's definitely a mix that needs to kind of live together where you can have plans, but just know that like it might not go according to plan, and that's totally okay too. But I also think that having that plan and maybe just an overview, I mean, that's kind of like how I plan my content. I have an overview. I'm not writing content months and months out. I just kind of know from week to week what I'm going to talk about. And then if I want to say something different, then I'm going to do that. And so like, it doesn't, I feel like you can kind of like be both people. And that's the biggest success, is definitely have a plan for what you want and take those little steps to get there, because that's how you're going to get there. But don't make it so hard on yourself to where I have to do this. I have to be this strict. I have to do all of these things, because it's never going to be sustainable. And I think that also things are going to happen, like tragedies, or you're going to get sick, or you're going to break a bone or something. And it's going to like, derail you a little bit, and that's okay too.
Yeah. I think it speaks to this, like it really depends, I think, where we are in our journey, to what point, to what degree you need like a lot of structure and discipline and like a very concrete plan. And as you kind of get going and you feel more comfortable with the unknown, which is, I think I'm hearing you say, like, essentially that's what dealing with cancer gave you, is this ability to be a lot more chill with the unknown. Mm-hmm. And it's such a powerful skill to have, right? I mean, in life and in entrepreneurship. So yeah, tell us quickly, like, what are you working on at the moment and how people can work with you?
I will be announcing soon a new program to work with me. I haven't announced it yet at all. But I'm going to be announcing that kind of at the back end. I'm doing a challenge that I will be announcing Monday. I know this is going to come out already, but Monday, September 19th, I'm doing a visibility challenge for people who are struggling to sign clients. And then come in October, at the end of October, I will have a new program to work with me.
Amazing. Well, I look forward to following that announcement, and I'm sure by then you can share with us the links in the show notes for that new program.
Yes.
So thank you, Lauren, for all this wisdom. Any sort of little parting bits, inspiring words you want to leave us with?
I think one of the things I will always say is you have to do what's best for you. And I know we said that here, but that's the biggest thing at the end of the day is you might be a type A personality and you need structure, then go ahead and do that. And then don't listen to us, like where you need to go with the flow. That might give you too much anxiety, but you have to do what's best for you. There's so much noise out there. There's so many things. It's important to find your people. It's important to find someone who truly is going to guide you into the individual that you are, in whatever capacity you find that. And I think that at the end of the day, like that's where your success is you have to do what's best for you.
Love it. Well, thank you so much. And
thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Lauren. That was such a great conversation. I felt like we got into some nitty-gritty discussions about goals and the fear that we have or shame that we have around doing it a certain way, living our lives in general. We talked a lot about entrepreneurship, but I feel like everything we talked about really ties into our wellness journey, just life lessons and all of that. So if you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend. And if you enjoy the podcast in general, you can really support us best by subscribing on the platform that you listen to us. And yeah, leaving is really the best way that we have have a beautiful day. You can find me on socials. I feel like Lauren called me out a little bit going on to TikTok, but I asked her after we stopped recording. She's like, no, I wasn't talking to you because you have a plan. After I, of course, detailed out my TikTok strategy. But anyway, I really appreciate all of you for being here. Thank you for the support. Have a beautiful day.